Hello friends, we are beginning a new section here in the Esoteric Psychology book, calling this the Laws of the Soul. Webinar commentaries, and we're on number 1, Esoteric Psychology, page 85. And let's see, we'll just simply begin with the text and begin, as usual, to work our way through carefully and as thoughtfully as possible, making links to others of the books by Master D.K. We try to study in depth in a kind of, classroom-like situation, as if we were in a study group. Now, when I finished the work in a treatise on cosmic fire, doing it in a webinar kind of way, that is a video recording like this, there was a section on the 7 laws of group life. And really, what I said there will have to be put together with what I may say here. This is a far more extended section, as you can see, about 115 pages, so it will take a while, and the other in cosmic fire is a very short section. So when you put those two together, we should have quite a bit of thoughtful work on what these laws of the soul mean and how they can be applied to those who are on by those who are on the path of discipleship. So Master D.K. says here, we come now to a section of our study of the soul and its life, which is of real moment to all who live or begin to live and function as conscious souls. I suppose we are all souls, of course. We are all extensions of the monad. We are extensions of that one fundamental consciousness, whether on the soul level or on the personality level. We are units of consciousness, but are we aware of this? That is the point when we use a term like conscious soul. Do we have the realization of what we are? So for all those who live or are beginning to live and function as conscious souls through definite alignment and at-one-ment of the personality with the soul, and of the, basically with the mental unit on the highest level of the lower mind, with the egoic lotus on the plane of higher mind. This mental unit is the very center of the personality and is found on the 4th sub-level of the mental plane, rather high on that plane as well, as there are sub-levels. So who knows exactly what level this is found upon, but as you see, there is a connection here between the mental unit and the egoic lotus. It looks like it's with the center of the egoic lotus, which presents some interesting ideas, as if the center of consciousness within the egoic lotus is really in the central fire, in the jewel in the lotus, whether or not that is yet revealed for all people. It is not yet revealed for all. But when we talk about aligning the mental unit with the egoic lotus, it is to the center that we direct our thought, at least as far as this diagram, which Master D.K. has provided, indicates. This section will, however, be relatively abstruse to all those whose lives are centered in the personality. So this book is written for initiates of the 1st degree, minimally. Although initiates of higher degree, I do think, can take benefit from it. Down the ages, the scriptures of the world and those who have attempted to elucidate them have been occupied with imparting to humanity an understanding of the nature of those qualities and characteristics which should distinguish all true believers. The nature of those qualities and characteristics which should distinguish all true believers, all true aspirants, and all sincere disciples, whether Christian or otherwise. I think he's talking principally here about the qualities of the soul. This is the impression, qualities of the soul. The teaching has always been given in terms of good behavior and right action, and therefore in terms of effects produced by inner causes which have not always been specified. So, if there is alignment with the soul, there will work out into outer behavior those desirable effects. So it is the inward quality which results in the usual virtues which are to characterize our code of behavior, but of course these virtues are really internal. A virtue is a strength, and in this case a spiritual strength characteristic of the world of the soul. Basically, he says all such virtues, good inclinations, and attempted sound qualities represent the emergence into expression upon the physical plane of certain energies and tendencies inherent in the soul itself. And by the soul we mean the type of consciousness which is found on the higher is found as part of the human being's energy system on the higher mental plane. It is partly an extension of the monadic presence and consciousness, and partly an infusion of the solar angel within the egoic lotus, present there as the angel of the presence. That's another name for it, as the angel of the presence. So egoic consciousness is the higher consciousness of the man, and also the presence of a temporarily infusing consciousness of a higher being, a graduate human, known as the solar angel, which invests a part of its a part of its consciousness, let us say, in the vehicle we call the egoic lotus or causal body. In fact, the solar angel is responsible for creating and sustaining that causal body, or egoic lotus. Well, the mysteries of the soul are many, and DK has told us we are not going to fully solve those mysteries at this time. But we can have some kind of idea that each one of us has the presence of this higher being associated with our own higher nature, and it acts as a bridge between our monadic nature and our lower personal elemental nature, and its wisdom is facilitating the reconciliation of the spirit and the matter form parts of our nature. This reconciliation is occurring much faster than otherwise it would if we had to struggle to make the bridge on our own, as was the case in the moon chain, the previous chain to ours, or the previous solar system, the first of the major solar systems, with the emphasis upon manas and personality. Okay, so these virtues really are inherent in the soul itself. These, in their turn, are governed by energies and laws which are of a nature different from those governing personality. So we are going to study a different series of laws which relate to soul expression on its own plane and in the three lower worlds. So we have the natural laws that do apply to our personal life in the three lower worlds, and then we have a series of much higher laws which are of great relevance to all those who are seeking to contact the soul, their higher self, the presence of the solar angel as the angel of the presence. I like that. The presence of the solar angel in our energy system as the angel of the presence. So these laws relate to that world, and they are laws mastered by the graduate human beings of a previous solar system, returning nirvanis from a previous Mahamanvantara, as we are told. It is important to emphasize this and to bear in mind that the powers of the soul as they are appearing in the world today constitute in their working out a body of phenomena which would have been regarded as magical, impossible, and superhuman several centuries ago. So such, we would say, such is the modern rapid unfoldment of modern man. We are really emerging from the hall of ignorance as a race, where form alone preoccupied our attention as the sole reality, into a world where we understand that our own nature is far richer in power, in love and light than we had hitherto suspected. So miracles are emerging. They are not miracles in the world of the soul, but to those of us who have been captivated by the worlds of form and all of their phenomena, they do appear miraculous. And we are entering the age of magic, which will bring higher energies into expression in the lower worlds, and the magic of the inner worlds will be made manifest to us. And we are unfolding that. It will take a few more centuries, I suppose. Well, really, it's an ongoing process. But even now, all that we can do presently will appear primitive in the eyes of those who are coming into incarnation in centuries ahead, the reincarnated aspects of ourselves, as Master Decay has sometimes said. The discoveries of science, the adaptation of the laws governing matter and directing material energy to the service and the growing need of mankind, we can say all this under the fifth ray and its ashram. The subtle and delicate apparatus of the human body, which medical science is now understanding and was not understood before, and the steadily increasing sensitivity of the human mechanism have brought about a world consciousness and civilization which, in spite of glaring defects, all based on the separative and selfish attitudes of the personalities through which the soul has yet, I would say, perforce to work, all these are the guarantee of the innate divinity of man. The guarantee of the innate divinity of man, and with all that may be inherent in and inferred from that phrase. So we are much more than we suspect. Our capacities are much more and fuller than we presently suspect, and we are going to learn about these higher inherent capacities, and how to cultivate them and express them, to live a life which is truly responsive to and expressive of the soul on its own plane. That's what this section is all about. And, think that this was written maybe 70, 80 years ago. And all that has happened since then, especially, in the manipulation of matter. We still have a long ways to go with psychology, but that is an emerging science as well. The human potential movement has given us a great deal. It has suggested that the human being is more divine than ever suspected. There used to be simply a supposed relationship between man as he was and God as man imagined him to be. But now we're filling in all the links, and we discover ourselves to be God-like and the very path to God and even from God, our planetary logos. What has not yet been grasped, we say here, is that these emerging godlike qualities, and we would say, possessed by the masters of the wisdom, these beneficent characteristics and the slowly appearing virtues of humanity are only indications of the hidden potentialities which have not yet been scientifically discovered. And, given that, think of this, that the higher method of teaching for the scientific fifth ray is the science of esoteric psychology. That may come as a surprise, but I believe we've sometimes said that France, with its Piscean fifth ray soul, will do so much to reveal the true science of esoteric psychology. It will not just be the study of esoteric psychology or the art or practice of esoteric psychology, as some of us maybe now can do to some extent, but it will be the truly scientific understanding of the relationship between the soul mechanism and its instrument, another mechanism, the personality on the lower planes. And as far as a truly technical understanding of that interplay, well, we as even relatively enlightened human beings do not have that. But that is coming under the fifth ray. The qualities, which, by the way, during the Aquarian age, if you think about it, it's a very fifth ray age. It's not just a seventh ray age. The fifth ray actually is transmitted through the sign or the constellation Aquarius. The seventh ray merely accompanies the coming into power of the sign Aquarius. Through one of its rulers, Uranus, there is a seventh ray association with Aquarius, but these rays that come into expression during the precessional ages, are accompanying rays and not necessarily transmitted rays. Sometimes they are transmitted, but sometimes they may not be associated directly with the precessional sign they may accompany. For instance, let's just suppose that we were in an age of Aquarius, a 2100-year age approximately, in which the fourth ray was the accompanying ray. It would be coming in on its own cycle, and it would not be the ray transmitted through Aquarius per se. But the fifth ray is. Whenever Aquarius shows up, this fifth ray will appear because it is a ray directly associated with that sign, at least all the time in our present world cycle. Who knows about other world cycles, because there's constant movement, combinations, permutations, all operating according to their own algorithm, their own pattern, of which we right now know very little, if anything at all. Just a little bit about from what the Tibetan has told us about the ray cycles. But the combinations and permutations must be truly amazing, and to be revealed to us when we are further along in our initiatory fulfillment, and when we can do something practical and useful with the information. The qualities of goodness are so called because they are in essence the energies controlling group relations, the good. It always has to do with that which is inclusive of the group. So the good takes into consideration the welfare of all members of a whole. The greatest good of the greatest number. And unless the welfare of the greatest number is considered, we do not really have an expression of the good. The powers called superhuman are fundamentally the powers which express group activity, which makes avails by which means man can avail himself of powers that are higher than those available to the individual. So there is an intensification of power available as we recognize our group affiliations and work from within the context of our group affiliations. And the virtues are only effects of group life. See, the soul is group conscious, and the powers of the soul are group powers. In effect, we are the group. And not just the individual. And when we realize this, we can avail ourselves of the powers of all the other individuals collected in the group self, which is really our own self. So we say, well, I as a limited human being, yes, but what about you as the group? What about you as the whole? What about you, as paradoxical as it may seem, what about you as essentially you as the entire universe? All the powers of the universe will be available with increasing realizations of our identity as we break through every illusory ring pass not. So the qualities of goodness are the emerging qualities are the qualities controlling group relations. The powers called superhuman are those which express in group activity, and the virtues are only effects of group life. The virtues tend to promote the welfare of each group member. Virtue, or let's see, true virtue, tends to promote the spiritual welfare of every group member and of the group as a whole. Well, we have to get this into our minds. We are very still individualistic people. We are still very much in a Leonian phase, but we're moving into an Aquarian phase where the group will be that which is held in mind and not just the apparent welfare of our own individuality. The welfare of the group is the welfare of our own individuality. So the virtues are only effects in group life rightly handled, which are attempting to express themselves on the physical plane. We're talking about unselfish groups which are aligned with the purpose of the group soul and with the divine plan. The growing science of social relations, of social responsibility, or coordinated civic life, or scientific economics, and of human interrelations, the steadily developing sense of internationalism, of religious unity, and of economic interdependence are all of them indications of the energies of the soul upon the physical plane and within the human family. In other words, all are considered within a unity which is known as real. So many of us are still isolated in our consciousness, and we look after so-called number one, as we call it. It's a very Leonian idea, but eventually number one will be the group itself, will be the larger group, will be humanity, will be the planet. Number one will be the solar system, and so forth. So we'll say there will be radical changes in what we consider to be, in the old quote, number one. The most primitive, of course, is the lower ego, I, the isolated self, the most important, and if we could only realize it, the most unreal. Okay, hence the conflict of ideals in the world today, because we have ideals which some ideals promote the welfare of the individual, and others the welfare of the group, but only a few the welfare of both. We have seen communism, fascism, other enforcing codes take away all rights of the individual in the interests apparently of the group. We have seen anarchists deny the welfare of the whole and thinking only of their own so-called individual freedom, thinking that somehow that will bring about the welfare of the whole, forgetting the stages of consciousness at which so many members of that whole still exist, so it would be chaos. We've had those two opposing points of view, and we also need a point of view in which the interests of both the individual and the group are carefully considered together and balanced. Hence the conflict of ideals in the world today, hence the mass dualism, which produces such bewilderment between these two poles I mentioned, the poles of the individual and the group, and hence the compromises and hence the inconsistencies as we try to balance the demands, the rightful demands of both. Here is to be found the cause for all the divergencies in the world of civilized ideals, and the conflicting and widely differing motives which impel people of good motive and intention and of high principle into antagonistic activities. Well, we will say that both the rights of the individual and of the group must be preserved. And right group life will preserve both. But we are definitely entering into an age when the group will be considered in a way that it has not for a long time. Hopefully we will not be entering into an age of the standardization of the individual in some totalitarian manner. That is also a possible Aquarian outcome. So we need to avoid, I'll put this down, we need to avoid standardization and totalitarianism, both. Though they are really very similar, because this is the negation of the value of the individual in comparison with the value of the state. So it is oftentimes really suppression of the will of God, because every human being has something of that will which is to be worked out into expression. And when all are forced to think and to live and to act in a certain way, then all the variety which is intended to be present in the full expression of the divine plan as it represents the purpose, that variety will be missing, and it will be a dull expression, a common and unfruitful expression, monochromatic in comparison with the incredibly rich diversity of color and quality which the divine plan intends to express in harmony. So we cannot see the suppression of the individual in favor of the state, nor can we see the glorification of the individual, the dictatorial glorification of certain individuals at the expense of others and of the welfare of the whole. So this is a situation in which constant compromise is required, and a balancing of the work promoted by Libra will be necessary. So two sets of principles are to be found controlling human life, and the selfish and the unselfish, the individual good and the group good, the objective goal and the subjective goal, the material incentive and the spiritual impulse, national patriotism and the world ideal, separative religious belief and the federation of religions, and all the many masked dualities which simply indicate the realism of people who are personalities, integrated and separative, or of souls aligned and group conscious. This is such an important paragraph. There's nothing wrong with these other values. They have had their place and they must be respected. But let's just say the first in each pair of these dualities must eventually be subservient to the second, and yet not be entirely compromised. Because there is the, well, in other words, there is the little personal self, and its welfare will mean that one tiny aspect of the will of God can express itself. So there is such a thing as looking at oneself as an individual instrument which has a part to play, a dharmic part to play in the overall expression of the larger plan. And then there is the mistaken notion, the distortion of the exaggerated importance of that little individual and of the part to play, such that the other dharmas are minimized or negated, and one's own dharma or one's own destiny is seen to be the most important of all. That would be a distortion. So we need a balanced point of view here. First of all, to balance in Libra both of these competing demands, and then to have the second of the demands rise sufficiently above the other so that the individual values become a subset of the group values, which are closer to the realm of the soul and higher. So let's just say that individual values must become a subset of group values. And I want to say here, I want to say true group values closer to the soul, because the soul is conscious of the group and conscious of the whole later. When soul consciousness, soul consciousness becomes universal consciousness. So from individual consciousness to group consciousness or soul consciousness to universal consciousness, consciousness of the one. And the soul is much closer to that sense of universal consciousness than we, with our personality limitations, can be. So here is the major divergence between the separative attitude and the group attitude, we can say. Between the separative attitude and the group attitude. Now, sometimes there are aspects of individuality which are better than certain expressions of the group. When the group becomes totalitarian and seeks to standardize to some kind of dull conformity all of its members, then the individual expression is far superior than that type of group expression. But when there is truly a unity in diversity, or diversity in unity of the properly expressed Aquarian energy, then the individual will flower in such a way that that flowering will promote the welfare and flowering and expression of every group member and of the group as a whole. Now this is a consummation devoutly to be wished, and will be on its way in the Aquarian age, and probably will really find its true appearance in the Venusian period of the Aquarian age, the period of brotherly love during the last 720 or so years of the Aquarian age. So here is the major divergence in the world today, with the weight of the power on the side of separation. Certainly at the time of the war, when this material was first written for Esoteric Psychology 2, as it is the line of least resistance and of critical differentiation, so we are still captivated by the emotions and the lower mind which serves those emotions and desires. So we're entering into a period on our planet when the energy of Libra will become very strong. A balancing of the two will gradually take place, with the weight of world idealism gradually shifting into the realm of soul unification. And we can see this already in some of the more advanced types of human beings, visible in the more advanced types of human beings. So many revolutionaries today, well, they're fighting for an ideal, but it's for the ideal that in some new social order they will be able to express all of their lower tendencies without inhibition. This we can see, and it is a disturbing movement. It is not really for the welfare of the whole. It's for the welfare of a specific group within a specific group. It is separative. But we are entering this universal age, the age of Aquarius, where the mind will be widened out considerably, the consciousness expanded to include the planet, as is already the case. If people would take advantage of our communication system and realize what's going on in the different parts of the world. So the world idealism, after quite a battle, I think, will be in Libra for the balancing, and then there'll be this battle in Scorpio for the emergence of a world idealism which is shifting to the realm of soul unification. A higher vision of Sagittarius will be presented, it is already being presented, and finally the initiation of humanity under Capricorn. Finally, the Christ force will really be anchored within human consciousness in a new way, and that is coming. Right now we're in the throes of the battle to prepare for that, and we're working under Vulcan and Pluto, two first-ray planets in different ways, which are really putting humanity through a great period of testing and trial and destruction of old forms. So shifting into the realm of soul unification until eventually, but not for quite a while, the emphasis of world thought will be definitely and permanently on the side of the angels, and, on the side of the solar angels, let us say. We can only hope that this will occur during the age of Aquarius at some point. Maybe the age of Capricorn will bring a wider type of initiation when this will become even more possible, and we do know that Venus rules that creative hierarchy of Makara, also ruled by the sign Capricorn. Venus, Makara, Capricorn, and the solar angels all united. So we hope there will be somehow a transition from the latter part of the Aquarian age into the age of Capricorn, so that the emphasis of world thought will be inspired by the streams of energy coming from those divine supervisors we call the solar angels. Note the occult truth of the familiar phrase, and this is what we've been trying to emphasize. The solar angels are as yet a very occult factor in human thought. That they are hidden, not many people know about them, but they are responsible for sponsoring so much of human achievement. Their presence within our higher consciousness has made so much possible sooner than otherwise would have been the case. Millions of years would have been lost comparatively without their intervention. Therefore, we can look for the new laws governing soul life, which is group life, to begin to function and make their presence felt. Well, the laws of the land are not yet the laws of group life, not yet. So one day the laws of the soul will be the laws of the land, or at least among the higher type of thinking people who will be more numerous among us. Right now we have all we can do to fight off the eruption of the elemental life which is rebelling at the intensifying presence of the soul and at the approach of the hierarchy and the Christ. There are some rebellions which really do indicate the emergence of the will, the inner will, the spiritual will within the human being, and others which are simply fighting for the right to perpetuate a lower form of life. That is a rebellion too, and we must be able to discriminate between the two of them. So the emphasis of world thought will definitely be and permanently be on the side of the angels. Well, you know, will that be, when we talk about permanence without any further battles, we almost think about the Judgment Day. Note the relation to the Judgment Day in the 5th round. And that is still millions of years ahead. Then, for our planet, there will be permanence because 3/5 of the present humanity will then remain on the planet, and 2/5 who are not ready will be redirected to other spheres for continuing education. Well, we'll certainly have continuing education on our planet as well, but all those who remain on our planet will be on the path, on one or other of the various stages of the path, or of the path of discipleship, or of the path of initiation, even 6th-degree initiates. So they will definitely, there will definitely be world thought permanently on the side of the angels. And without competition, one can imagine that the relationship then between the Venus and the Earth will be very strong. This will at first increase the world difficulty. Well, yes, before there is permanent acquiescence of human consciousness to the angelic streams of energy, yes, there will be a battle, of course. Hence the need to make the meaning of these laws clear, their objectives simple, and their potencies understandable, so that man may attempt to be governed, or to govern himself according to these higher laws, which emanate from a higher dimension. Well, more of us increasingly are becoming soul conscious. We are learning the techniques of occult meditation. We are learning how to tranquilize the different instruments that we have and to cease our habitual identification with those instruments and to find a different center within ourselves which temporarily is none of what we have identified with before. Eventually there's only one thing, and of course one identifies as everything eventually, but in the process of learning to find that type of realization, we have to separate ourselves from our previous identifications. We have to realize in the Raja Yoga method that we have a body of physical expression, but we are not that body, and we have a body of vitality, which is really a physical body as well, of a higher type, but we are not that body, that we have feelings, sentient states, and resultant emotions, which are not our true identity. We have them, we work through them, but we are something else. We can center in something else. If one really learns the attitude of the observer, to center in the observer, one will find that it is not just a convenient technique for detaching from our habitual identifications, but we will find eventually that we are actually centering ourselves in monadic life itself, in pure being. I mean, the true being is the observer of all of the active states which are occurring in the vehicles which the being has attracted to itself. We will learn that we have the the mind and all of its mental actions and capabilities, but we are none of those actions. We are the user of those actions. We will find ourselves amidst these different states of activity, states of phenomena, but we will know that essentially we are separate from them until later we reclaim them, of course. Heuristically, at least, in order to teach ourselves how to do this, we have to act as if we are separate from them and have our own center as the observer and controller of these vehicles of expression, which henceforth become our instrument to be controlled. And all the impulses which arise from those instruments no longer can deflect us, delude us, dissuade us from our truer inner tasks. And we will learn that we live in a world where higher laws prevail, the laws of the soul, the 7 laws of the soul. Things seem to come in 7 when we study occultism. They come in 3s and 7s and also in 2s, and finally they are 1. They come in 12s too, and many other divisions, 49s and so forth. But it all resolves into one thing, of course. So we will learn that our truer focus is in a world of light. Let the soul look out upon an inner world of light divine. We are told in a certain 5th ray paragraph. And that our habitual focus is in a dimension where unitive love is the prevailing type of relationship between units in the field of consciousness. There will be a divine harmonious cohesiveness, and that spiritual cohesiveness, eventually divine cohesiveness, is promoted by the laws of the soul. We will find nothing that leads to any permanent state of disunity. Nothing, if there is separation involved, such as in the law of repulse, it's only so that a higher unity can be achieved. And we will find that there is a tendency in this world in which the observer can live a truer life towards a sacrificial will, so that the welfare of the whole is of paramount importance in the consciousness, and so that there is a tendency always to look at the instrument and say, how can this instrument be used sacrificially to promote greater coherence between the units and the welfare, greater welfare of every unit. So we will become, in a sense, like the Christ, a man for others. Well, eventually the observer will move into still higher worlds which are of a planetary nature and are, in the words of modern science, a non-local nature. We will find the alteration in our ideas of time and of space. And, gradually we will return as the observer, who is also the director, to that world of homogeneous being, which is the world of the monad. It's by no means the end of our quest, but it's the end of the strictly, of the quest of the 4th creative hierarchy, members of the 4th creative hierarchy functioning as the 4th creative hierarchy. We will then be preparing to move into a higher status toward position in other and higher hierarchies. I've often wondered, that if the bulk of humanity is going to become solar angels, then the solar angels will, they are members of a higher hierarchy than the human, really, essentially. Although they are said to be members of the 5th creative hierarchy, the placement of the 5th creative hierarchy is well above, though expressive below, the 4th creative hierarchy. So we will be changing hierarchies. In other words, the monads who are now expressing through the 4th creative hierarchy will be entering a higher hierarchical status, and those which are the lower forms of life will take the place of the human hierarchy. It's quite an intricate thing, really, to think of changing hierarchies, but some of the greater members of the fourth grade of hierarchy can be preparing now to move on into higher states. Will it be into positions within the third creative hierarchy, the so-called triads or triple flowers, where they will become relatively lower units within that hierarchy? Or will they also some of them, maybe a great number, move into the fifth grade of hierarchy? But on it will go until we, the observer, will find our advancing place, moving through one grade of hierarchy after another on the seemingly endless upward journey towards the center. But of course the journey is eternal. It never began and it never can end. And in fact it's eternal, but it doesn't exist at all, because in a way there's nothing to journey to and nothing to journey from. But those are metaphysical questions which, in terms of time and space, do not have so much immediate utility. So we human beings, we've been so used to simply working in the world of phenomena, the world of mind, emotions, body, that we have to change the laws by which we live, as if we were truly group beings. And this change of law, this ascribing to a different set of laws, will be frictional at first, because we are used to surviving under the law of economy, really, in which the form must be preserved at all costs. The laws have contributed to the survival of the form. But now we are entering a series of laws which comes in under the second aspect of divinity, the law of attraction and repulsion, the second aspect of divinity. And when we start to live by those laws, we'll find ourselves going against the grain in the lower three worlds. We'll be swimming upstream. Eventually we will become ejected, as it is said by the fourth kingdom in nature, ejected into a higher kingdom, and then it will be, we will have proved by our ejection that we made every attempt to live according to soul laws. When we begin to emphasize the welfare of the group instead of the selfish welfare of the individual, there are simply many people who will feel threatened by that particular stance, as if we were taking something away from them. And indeed we are. We're taking away the emphasis upon the selfish person, but and the gratification of the selfish person. But when you think that you are that person, you naturally want that which you think you are to be gratified. Well, the people who are moving into the stage of group consciousness begin to have an entirely different idea about what identity is, and they want that larger picture of identity to be gratified, the identity of the group. They want the welfare of the group above the welfare of the individual, until we have that important principle, the greatest good of the greatest number, which means the ability to unfold within each individual, in as great a number of individuals as possible, that divine name, that divine code, which is an aspect of the purpose of God, so that God may truly manifest in the lower worlds. Each of us has a certain secret of divinity within ourselves, which, if not manifested, will contribute to the incompleteness of the larger manifestation. So, in a way, there must be manifestation of the inner name, the inner purpose for each individual human being, and really for each form of life. Some human beings will voluntarily reject that possibility, and thereby the divine purpose will be temporarily compromised, but eventually they will work themselves into the condition where they can express that which is deeply latent within themselves as the purpose of God. Well, okay, we're just beginning this section. The laws of the soul. 7 laws of group life, and we've only done a few pages. I purposely, as you have realized, been doing a little bit of summarizing, hesitating to get into the law of sacrifice, wanting to it to be its own section. And that is what we will do in the next one of these programs. This will just be an hour-long program, and I think we could take this to the great invocation at this time. Which is, of course, our great theme and all that will promote the reappearance of the Christ in the wisest and most expeditious manner, and that which will be the mantram for the new age, essentially, and I can see it being a mantram for many ages to come. So then, together, the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the centers which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Oh.